Away from Ramadan, let's talk another issue of global interest. This time, we told you in the start of the program, in 24 hours, governments will demonstrate support for environmental protection where they observe. That is when they observe the International World Earth Day in its 53rd edition, placed on the theme investing in our planet. This year's FD comes after COP15, the United Nations Biodiversity Summit in Canada last year, where a new agreement to protect 30% of nature on Earth by 2030 was reached. Let's now take you over to Belgium to join one of our correspondents, not really one of our planet enthusiasts, who is a climate change and sustainable development policy enthusiast, to be precise, and who will be talking to us concerning this ambition to make the world sustainable in terms of environment and nature. Let's join Tambe Honourine Enow, all the way from Belgium. If she's getting us, you're welcome to the show. My first question to you will be, what concerns are most urgent if we have to make our planet very sustainable? Over to you.
There are a myriad of issues plaguing the world today, but the three pressing issues that need urgent attention in order to transition to a more sustainable world are climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. These three issues are collectively called the triple planetary crisis, and they are directly or indirectly interconnected with each other. Therefore, there is need to address them in a unit and not as in silos, because addressing them in silos will neglect the interconnectedness, the synergy that exists between them, and the opportunities that can come out from these synergies. With plastic pollution affects the aesthetics, and it's also very persistent in the environment. It can go for like 500 years without breaking down, and sometimes if they break down into microplastics that would enter the food chain of organisms. For example, in the marine environment, they will enter the food chain of marine organisms, and the marine organisms will bioaccumulate and biomagnify these plastics, these microplastics, and when we consume these organisms, we pick up these plastics, and of course results in health issues. In addition, microplastics or plastics broken down in the marine environment, or even in the terrestrial environment, will result in the production of greenhouse gases like methane. And these greenhouse gases will go directly to affect our climate. So you see how it's interconnected with both biodiversity and the climate. Now we talk about biodiversity. Biodiversity is very, very, very important, very significant to our survival, especially in Africa or Cameroon, where we rely mostly on nature for livelihood. So if our nature is being affected, biodiversity is being affected, in the long run, it's going to affect our livelihood. It's going to affect survival. It's going to affect the future generation. Talk about climate change. Directly or indirectly, plastic affects biodiversity. As plastic affects biodiversity, for example, it kills the phytoplanktons in the ocean, which helps in sequestering carbon. It will result in increase in CO2 in the ocean and other greenhouse gases. And the increase in CO2 results in global warming, the greenhouse effect, and which of course causes climate change. What happens when we have climate change? Increase in windstorms, flooding, destruction of infrastructures, food insecurity, decrease in food productivity, and so on. So you can see that it's very, very important to address the triple planetary crisis of climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution, especially plastic. And with a keen interest in the marine environment, looking into the synergies that exist between these environmental issues and the opportunities that can come out of them.
Now we understand that habits have changed, but what can we do now that we are faced with this situation? How can we roll back actions?
There has been a significant shift in the shift away from reuse, Normally, in waste management, we encourage reuse, reduce, recycle, which are the three arrows of waste management. But it's the aspect of reuse and reduce has significantly reduced, especially in Africa, because as people become wealthier, they tend to use more resources, or they tend to use these resources more, and they think that by using them more, it's an expression, or it's an indication of their wealth. For example, back in the days, we used to reuse plastics. When you go to the market and you purchase something, you keep the plastic and then use it for to contain future goods and so on, to preserve future goods that you buy. Even in Belgium, for example, there are policies that have been put in place to reduce the production of plastic, encouraging reuse and so on. But this does not happen in Cameroon. So there is actually a need for people to change habit from thinking that because they are wealthy, they can purchase as many plastic as they want, to instead start thinking that, okay, because they are wealthy and they care about the environment, they care about the future generation and so on, so they can actually manage their wealth in such a way that will protect the environment. So people should start practicing reuse of already existing goods that they or plastic and other things that they have in their homes in order to reduce waste in the environment, towards the environment. And for other aspects, for example, climate change, we as people become people become wealthy, they want to purchase as many cars as they want, and as they purchase many cars, that's how their consumption of fossil fuel is also increasing, and as their consumption of fossil fuel is increasing, they release more CO2, carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the environment, resulting in climate change. But if they would consider that, okay, because I'm rich, I don't have to, in fact, because I'm rich does not imply that I have to show off with many cars, they would instead probably purchase one car or choose to use public transport. For example, in Belgium, you don't show your wealth by the number of cars you use. You would see a very wealthy person riding on a bike, but I don't think that happens in Cameroon. So we have to change our mentality, because we believe in Cameroon that if you're rich, then you have to show it by what you acquire, the number of cars and so on.
Now, on a day like this, when we have to observe World Earth Day, what is expected of stakeholders apart from the usual awareness raising approach that has been on?
Uh, we are about to celebrate the World Earth Day tomorrow, the 22nd of April. Stakeholders like NGOs, for example, Africa Climate and Environment Foundation, have been implementing, or they have been conducting activities to commemorate this day. And it's not like we're just doing it on the 22nd. We've been doing it like all throughout the year, but this particular month, we consider the Earth month, is very special to us, and we have been doing cleanups in Limbe. And tomorrow we are going to have a mega cleanup campaign in Limbe, whereby we'll be cleaning up Down Beach Limbe, which is very, very, very dirty at the moment, with different kinds of waste, especially plastic. Yeah, so we as NGOs, we are going out there to lead by example, you know.
Now, looking at how much work you have to do in terms of raising awareness and also carrying out action, do you think one day is enough?
Raise awareness, but our action should not be limited to raising awareness. We also need to take actions on the ground. For example, if you're raising awareness, reduce your waste and so on, reuse, but there are already plastics in the environment. So we still have to clean up the mess that is already in the environment. There are already CO2 in the environment, methane and others. We still need to remove them. So we need to, while we're raising awareness, we still also have to take actions that is geared towards cleaning up the pollution that already exists in the environment. We have to take actions that is geared towards restoring the already degraded degraded biodiversity, and we have to take actions to, like I already said, to restore our climate as well. So these actions should not be limited to, for example, cleanups or planting of trees and so on, but we should also think about influencing policies both at national and international level. Personally, I have been trying to influence policy at international level, and for example, we have the upcoming intergovernmental negotiating committee to combat plastic, to come up with an internationally binding agreement to combat plastic pollution, including in marine environment. And the second meeting of this body, the body is owned by the UN Environment Programme. The second meeting is coming up in France, in Paris, this end of May. And of course, Africa Climate and Environment Foundation will be present at the meeting to influence policies that would significantly address the issue of plastic pollution, especially in Africa. For as far as climate change is concerned, of course, I'm already in the system, and I've been trying to influence policies that would not only address climate change issues in Africa in general, but will also ensure that those who are directly impacted by climate change, or those who are taking actions on the ground to ensure that the reduction of greenhouse gases are also compensated through the available mechanisms that exist within the UN space.
Tambe Honourine Enow there, all the way from Belgium. She is a climate change and sustainable development policy enthusiast, talking to us within scope of the forthcoming World Earth Day. We're going to take a break right now, so we give you time to welcome Liam Okeka for the 7 p.m. newscast on CRTV News.